Today, we will be wrapping up the controversies in Chapter 3 of the Sun article about the Election Day fight and the PawPaw Tree event of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. We will begin with the movement of the McCoy brothers and the taking of the prisoners from the Possee. Then we will talk about the treatment of the McCoy brothers and then the meeting between Sally McCoy and the Hatfield clan concerning what will happen to her three sons for the fight that they had with Ellison McCoy. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The kidnapping of the McCoy brothers. John Hatfield's home was surrounded by Hatfields. Now, we keep saying that it was the home of John Hatfield because that is what the Sun newspaper reported in its article. However, there are several sources that state that this was actually the home of Floyd Hatfield instead. In the testimony of Sarah McCoy, she states that her sons were held at Floyd's home. So we have to wonder, is this a case where we have a man that has both names that are used for the same person? Could his name have been John Floyd Hatfield or Floyd John Hatfield? So far, we cannot find if this was the case or not. Also, we have the movement of the McCoy brothers to consider here. Suppose that they were initially taken to John Hatfield's home. They ate breakfast, then moved out to head to the Pike County Jail, was taken from their guards, and then taken to Floyd Hatfield's home for the remainder of the time until they held a quote, trial, unquote, at the schoolhouse. And we use the word trial here very loosely, as there was not an actual trial that took place. Because there is no clarity about this, we will simply say that the three McCoy brothers were being held at a Hatfield home from this moment forward in our story. We have touched on the topic earlier about the kidnapping of the brothers. Now, picture this possibility. You have three men bound on horseback with a posse surrounding them to move from Logan County, West Virginia to Pike County, Kentucky. Ellison Hatfield was still alive, but slipping away slowly from his wounds. The Hatfields were angry about the condition of their beloved brother and uncle, and were not about to let those who were responsible slip from their grasp. Ance Hatfield took charge of the situation. Leading his kinfolk into the woods, within a mile of leaving the starting point, the Hatfield party overtook the posse. A very well-armed Hatfield party demanded that the McCoy brothers be taken to Blackberry Creek for trial. According to the Sun article, the excuse was that the testimony of Dr. Rutherford could be taken without him leaving the side of Ellison when he needed him the most. We could not find a conflicting or confirmation source about this situation, so it is plausible that this was the reason that was given, as there was not a gunfight when the McCoy brothers were taken. The treatment of the McCoy brothers. Now, there is not a lot of information out there about how the McCoy brothers were treated before the events at the PawPaw Trees, but we can pretty well safely state that the Sun article would have these events pretty well pegged. It would not have been out of the realm of possibilities that they were treated very roughly, that they were tied together so tightly to the point that they could be losing circulation in their hands and feet. Also, the taunting of the three brothers to remind them of what was coming would not be out of the realm of possibilities either. After all, this was about vengeance and justice in the minds of the Hatfields, as well as striking fear into those who dared to cross the Hatfield family. This would have taken place over at least 3 or 4 days, as Ellison Hatfield had not passed away when they were first tied up. And it would take a couple of more days after the event before they were dragged to a place of their deaths at the trees. The meeting. We discussed this part of the story in more detail on our Valentine Hatfield video series. But for a summary, we will break this part of the feud down into its simplest of explanations. Basically, the Hatfields were waiting to see what was going to happen to Ellison after the knife fight of August 5th, 1882, on Election Day, had taken place. Those under house arrest at the Hatfield home on Blackberry Creek were Tobert, Farmer, and Randolph Bud McCoy Jr. Ellison had been stabbed 26 to 27 times and shot. He was recovering at the home of Anderson Farrell on Mate Creek. After seeing her sons at the Hatfield home, Sarah McCoy traveled to Mate Creek to a schoolhouse to talk to aunts and Valentine Hatfield about the fate of her sons. Sarah stated that she saw Valentine while Hatfield when she was at Mate Creek, West Virginia. She went on to say that even though she begged Valentine on the behalf of her sons, that he did not listen to her, as vengeance was on his mind. Please keep in mind that Sarah did not witness the death of her sons, but only was a witness to the events leading up to the pawpaw trees. Indictments. The newspaper does not mention what happened after the deaths of Ellison and the McCoy brothers. There would be 20 indictments handed down to those who participated in the execution of the McCoys. But even with those indictments, there were no arrests made at that time. It would take a while before the charges would be answered in a court of law. There would be 2 men that would be well known for spending the rest of their lives in prison for these actions. Alexander Messer would spend the rest of his life in prison, and then in a prison hospital in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, where he would later die. Valentine Hatfield would also face charges concerning the McCoy brothers, and would face the rest of his life behind bars as well. He would die in prison of an unknown illness. All the while, Valentine Hatfield proclaimed his innocence of this crime. Most of the others that were involved in these murders were sent to jail over other events concerning this feud. Due to the fact that the wheels of justice moved slowly for these events, the McCoys had a great deal of frustration over the matter until it was finally resolved in a court of law. Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the myths and truths of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Please be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.